Okay, helping clients to pick the best teammates. Okay, picking the best team is a really important part of a coach's job. Right, look at it, like from an actual sports coach's perspective, like American football. Right, the coaches are largely, you know, their successes are largely based around not just the winningness of the team, but in general, but kind of the individual positions, how they've selected the individual players within it. Right. Who gets on the team actually affects the overall success of any game. You have one or two superstars, but the rest of the team are pretty crap. It doesn't really matter that these guys are the highest paid at their job, because the rest of the team don't match the standard of these guys, right? So, working as a great coach, we've got to figure out who the best people are to be on the team. Sometimes, see, here's one of the things. One of the pressures that we as coaches have often put on our clients' lives is we've almost made it that they have to go home and they have to speak to their husbands and they have to speak to their kids and almost demand that they become part of their team. Right? Well, you've got to support me in this because my trainer and my coach has said it's really important to me, right? It's great having the conversation, but the better conversation is, hey, this is the game that I'm playing for the next kind of couple of months. This is what I'm really, really working to in my life. It would mean a lot to me, and I would really, really love it if you felt in a position to really support me. Before you agree, let me tell you, from my perspective, what support actually means. Right? I would really love it if you could do this, 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 and this. Now, how do you feel about that? Do you feel you could support me in that? Right? If not, say that's okay. I kind of relinquish you of responsibility for that. Keep them off the team. Don't bring them in. And you can do that in families. And you get because so many people say, "Oh, my husband sabotages me," and people can't sabotage you. Right? There's a sabotage perspective. There's a sabotage feeling based around the idea that you believe that because they're your husband, because they're your wife, they're supposed to be on your team, and they're not playing. They didn't choose to play that game. They choose to play the husband game or the wife game or the partner game. They didn't choose to play your weight loss game or your kind of trying out for the team game or whatever it was, right? Treat each individual kind of part of your life as like, okay, I need to invite my teammates along for this part. I tell you what, just that in itself, being able to absolve, particularly your partners, right? Being able to absolve your partners of responsibility for your results and your feelings around something is really powerful in itself. So you just go, and you're not doing it from a judgmental, well, screw you perspective if you won't help me, because that's just guilt-ridden and that makes everyone feel crap. But if you're just genuinely saying, look, I would love your help, this would mean a lot to me, but I also understand it might not be something that you want to be part of at the moment. Kind of, this is what help to me looks like. If you don't want to do that, hey, you just do your own thing around it. I tell you what, the freedom that gives a lot of clients is massive. Why? Once you choose who needs to be on your team, why? I say needs, right? Who would you want? Who would you desire on your team? Why do you want them on there? Like, what are you hoping for them to do? So again, if your husband or your wife, you would desire them on your team. What would you like them to do if they're a team member? This is the kind of support I have. And here's another key note. As you're asking for help from your various teammates, or as you're selecting your team, don't ask very much of any of them. It's better to ask several people for a small thing. Like, I'd really love it if you could help me by not bringing home chocolate in the evenings, or not bringing home a bottle of wine, or whatever it is, right? That would really be helpful to me, because it's one of my biggest temptations is around wine, right? Don't say, what I really want you to do is this, and this, and this, and this. The person's suddenly going, oh, shit, that's not even my game, and you're asking me to play all the hardest plays. Can you see why that in itself is actually a big problem to a lot of the partnerships you've been in? Right? You think about the demands that you've placed on them, right? And they all become like requirements. If you loved me, you would do this, and you would do this, and you would do this. You're not doing this. That means you don't really love me. Because that's where a lot of people's heads go to, right? If my husband really loved me, he would stop doing this, and he'd start doing this, and he'd do this, and do this, and do this, and do this. Not doing that, therefore, the flip side is true, doesn't really love me in that way. Okay, so going back to, sorry to cut you off, was there a second part to that? Was there a second? No. Going back to, let's imagine that every day for the rest of your existence, that's what work is going to be like, right? No ifs, no buts. It's going to be like that every day from now on. Now what? Okay, because really the biggest coaching question, one of the biggest coaching questions is, okay, so now what? right? Shit has happened. Okay, so now what? Yeah? Figuring out with them, look, Mary, they are going to do this every day for the rest of your life. And I assume that you like your job and you want to stay there. So if you do like your job and you want to stay there, okay, so now what? What are you going to do about it? Okay. One of my clients, they came up with like a really simple strategy because they had this same thing. They were talking about self-sabotage. And when people kind of bought them gifts of chocolates and all these kind of, jars of candies and all this kind of stuff, because people were always traveling and they were getting like these freebies and stuff coming back and forward, they just made a big show of giving it away, right? They'd actually give it away. So now after a while, like if I go out my way to bring you something, and you see me and you hear of me, like, I know that John really loves these, I'm going to give them to him. You're going to think, after a while, even if it's slightly embittered to begin, we go, screw that, I just bought them for you and you're giving them away. Right, I'm not buying you anything again. Right? So the strategy works. Right? So ask them what they're going to do. But most of us make these, oh no, really I couldn't, I'm on a diet, I really shouldn't be taking that. That kind of thing doesn't work. And for some people, certainly if they're not on your team, they almost enjoy the tease and almost enjoy forcing them on you, right? So just come up with other strategies. It just costs that person X bucks to buy that tray of Krispy Kremes or whatever, and you go, oh, thanks very much. I'm going to give them to the guys down in the mailroom because they really like them. That person's probably not going to buy you a tray of Krispy Kremes again, right? Yeah? It's a simple strategy. One of my clients came up with that themselves. And it worked almost immediately, but it was almost like people got pissed. Like, I bought them for you and you're giving them away. The actual specifics of it doesn't matter, but dealing with that, like that position statement of this is going to happen, assume this is going to happen to you every day for the rest of your life as long as you work in that place. Now what? Okay? That's pretty powerful because it forces you to, instead of kind of playing the blame game and the kind of the disempowered game where every day you go in and you hope that they won't tease you with chocolate and you hope they won't tease you with candies and cakes and everything else. You just kind of go in with a mindset of, okay, there's probably going to be cakes and pastries and it's all going to show up. Here's how I'm going to deal with it. Right? Prediction and response takes away the threat. Because if you're in that environment, you're kind of hoping that it won't show up, and it does. It's like, shows up. I'm under threat again. What am I supposed to do? And there's a secondary part to this because of social dynamics. Most of us have been taught that when you're given a gift, you're supposed to really appreciate it and kind of thank people for it. And part of that, if that gift happens to be food, you're supposed to eat it, right? Not if you don't desire to, right? Again, so why has the food become a threat? It's because it's turned into a requirement in your head. Oh, they bought it for me. I have to eat it. Require. Go. Do you know what? I would really love to eat those, but right now I'm really looking after myself. I'm pursuing a really important goal, but I'm going to give this to the guys in the mailroom. They'll love it, right? What do you want them to do? What don't you want? What if they don't? Right. So what if the person that you want to bring on your team doesn't do it? What does that actually mean to you? Okay. Setting up the strategies around it. I've put on here like how would you fire a teammate? Right. All I mean is how you release them from the responsibility that they may feel under, right? Because if they're not doing what you've asked them to do, there's always this kind of resentment that builds up between people that, I thought you were going to help me and you didn't, and all this kind of stuff. Just release them from it, and release them from it and mean it, okay? It's okay, you don't have to do that. Boom. You wouldn't use the term, I'm going to fire you as a teammate, because that'll add to the resentment. Yeah, but... Right, but actually the physical process of going through and kind of saying, look, it's okay, it ends the whole facade and the charade around it, right? And it's just kind of like, okay, I know that I'm doing this part by myself. It's actually very, very powerful for the clients to do that, okay? As opposed to, because otherwise there's always this kind of, it's like a pseudo release, right? It hasn't really happened, right?